Hello and welcome everybody to this XTB Market update on gold. My name is Walid Koudmani, and in this video we're going to be covering this precious metal along with the general situation in the markets at the moment and how it might affect gold in particular along with other precious metals, which have seen a rebound that was quite strong after the elections. So first of all, we'd like to take a look at the chart on the X station. We can see that, of course, since the end of October, gold prices have rebounded from a low of around 1866 and are up about 4.5% this month. At the moment, they're around 1953 to 1960. The election results, of course, are still not determined. So as of Friday, the 6th of November, the election results are not determined, although it is looking likely like Biden is catching up in certain states. On the other hand, we have the US dollar index at the lowest level in around 2 months, with certain currency pairs with the US dollar reaching significant highs. Yesterday, Thursday, the Fed announced its rate decision, which they decided to leave rates unchanged, and QE unchanged as well for the time being. Today's NFP report is key, and it showed a greater than expected increase, although it still is less than before. Of course, many of you may know about the worsening COVID situation in the world, which has led to several lockdowns in countries including the UK. Other precious metals are also gaining, and we can see that in the next slides. So, obviously we can see that these are all the different indices. For Europe, US, we have DAX, so D30, US 500, US 100, S&P. And we can see that indices have declined heavily recently. This is probably mostly due to the second wave of COVID, which was announced initially, that there could be the potential for a second wave, but now we are actually experiencing it. And with the second wave, along with it come second wave of lockdowns, which obviously then end up affecting the economy and the potential of stocks in the economy. European indices cratered, but in the US, despite the election risk, markets have managed to remain quite high. This is kind of the similar situation that happened earlier during the year, where fundamental data was quite negative, but indices were still being boosted up. So is it a great chance to take a long position, or is it just trapped for bulls? That is the key issue here. How these indices and how these countries react and how long these lockdowns will last is a key in that, because we have seen already that despite cases spiking, the death rates are much lower, so perhaps governments will find a way to kind of balance it out. So the main event this week and the previous week has been the US presidential election. I'm sure many of you have been following. So as one might notice, volatility in the 3 to 6 month period after previous election was relatively low. It is worth mentioning that gold prices actually reacted sharply to Trump's win because prices were falling. As far as gold is concerned, though, everything depends on the US dollar and investors' perception of risk, as gold tends to be seen as a safe haven asset often. In theory, Trump's win means low risk in the short run because of another price drop, potentially. On the other hand, Biden's win might be associated with possibly bigger stimulus package potential price gains, although the Senate and House elections, which also happened at the same time as the presidential elections, might be very important for the stimulus package in particular, which was supposed to happen before the election, but then got pushed to after. After the election, there is a chance for declines due to lower risk that had been building up with the uncertainty. It might be followed by a rebound in December or January on the back of global fundamentals if things start to improve. Now, should Biden win by a small margin, which is what is looking likely, gold price may surge as concerns will surface over whether Trump hands over power peacefully or not. This was one of the key theories or scenarios potentially that we discussed in the election video we did, where one of the scenarios was that Trump would just not accept the defeat because he would claim that they had cheated, especially particularly with the mail-in ballots. The more that scenario becomes likely, the more uncertainty there is in the markets, which tends to favor safe haven assets, which can include gold. But it is not for sure because we don't know how exactly this is going to play out, considering that they are probably going to resort to the Supreme Court at some point, which just recently got stacked even more by Trump. So here are a few different views, in fact. We have the US dollar index. On a daily chart, we can see that it is at the lowest level since the beginning of September, end of August. And The US dollar has been fluctuating quite a bit, but this most recently has been declining heavily with the rise of indices that we saw most recently and the rise of the price of gold. Euro USD reaches a new high of 118.8 today. It is pushing higher despite lockdowns in Europe. The USD weakness is trumping all of that. Trump, once again, as I mentioned, said that mail-in ballots are fraud on the American public and that his campaign will go to the Supreme Court. And we have seen indices starting to pull back, even in Europe, as lockdowns keep happening, and of course the uncertainty continues. Other precious metals, as I mentioned, are also up, and silver, for example, is up over 10% this month. We can see that in this chart, starting from around this area of $23 up to now $25.7. This echoes the upward move seen in other precious metals as well, like platinum, which is up around 6%, from a low of 841 to around 905, and palladium, which is up around 10% from a low of 2,180 to 2,395, 2,400-ish. We can see that, especially with platinum, but the similar move is for every other precious metal, they have almost completely recovered from the October drop, which saw them drop to this low to begin with. Last time there were lockdowns, so in March, we can see these are the daily charts from March, that the saying, the time to buy is when there's blood in the streets, was never more accurate than during the spring, because what happened was, as soon as lockdowns were announced, indices kept crashing and tanking one after the other. Enormous interventions, though, meant that expected long bear market did not materialize. Announcing lockdowns marked market low, so these were the lows reached before the recovery actually started. Is this time going to be the same? Well, now it's not as unprecedented anymore as it was before. People were actually panicking, thinking that there could be a complete economic collapse and other sort of issues. We have seen central banks step up and act in unprecedented ways. We have seen lockdowns that had never happened before. So could they reach these new lows? That remains to be seen, but one thing's for sure is that public perception is different this time. Economies are more prepared, even though they're running out of resources, of course, because this has been an extended period of time. But the perception of everything failing is not there anymore, because we've seen that central banks and governments step in to save that. When can we expect the full results of the election? That's a key issue. Of course, this is Friday, the 6th of November. The election was Tuesday, the 3rd, so it's been about 3 days. But at the same time, some states are expected to count votes longer than others. So Pennsylvania has been a key one, which just as of making this video has switched to Biden slightly, and is one of the key states where it could take days to announce the full results. We are expecting the results around today, which should be quite conclusive as more mail-in ballots come in. Biden is closing the gap in these states, so we have Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, which were actually leaning towards Trump, with Nevada slightly leaning towards Biden. Now we're seeing these two states switch to Biden as more votes come in. This one, so Nevada, is still heading for Biden. Basically, for Trump to win, he needs to win all three of these and this one, and then he will win. Is it possible? It is possible. Is it likely? That is the different question, and we'll see how that plays out. Winner is expected to be called soon, but Trump is ready for legal action between the Supreme Court and raising individual lawsuits on states and expecting recounts. Biden might be doing the same if Donald Trump contests. There's also the Senate and House elections are in focus, as I mentioned, because they play a key part in any legislation that gets passed after, particularly the stimulus package that has been discussed extensively over the past few weeks. So what is there to keep an eye on for gold? Gold is potentially heading for around $2,000 because of this upward move. It has crossed several potential resistance levels, but this all remains to be seen because of the geopolitical situation. Some things to keep an eye on are non-farm payroll, which was today, but any major macroeconomic release is key to key. Lockdowns, of course, because they can affect and will affect the economies. The US dollar price, which as we can see is dropping while gold is moving higher. Central bank decisions like the Fed and the ECB, which decided to leave rates unchanged, and the Bank of England as well, most recently. The number of COVID cases, which is increasing at a record level, with France declaring the highest level of new cases since the beginning of the pandemic. ETF demands, which when it comes to something like gold are a key aspect to keep an eye on. And of course, last but not least, the US election. All these factors play into how long will the rise of gold continue and what could actually stop it / what could help it. And so taking all that into consideration, with the upward move of 4.5% up on gold so far this month, the key question remains, how will these situations play out? And based on that, we can actually try to determine what's going to happen with gold, whether or not it can reach $2,000 or even move higher than that. Now, some key levels to keep an eye on. I will go back to this chart real quick. The gold chart initially, we can see that around, of course, the 1900 level, if on the way back, is a key level around the Ichimoku cloud on the H4 timeframe. But once we start reaching higher levels, unless something fundamental happens, those are the key things to keep an eye on. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was informative and it helped you. This is a very important market nowadays, but it always is, and now more than ever. So thank you very much for watching. My name is Walid Koudmani, and good luck with your trading.